Okay, welcome in everybody. Another week, another Friday. We're sitting here previewing all of the biggest action that college football will provide this weekend and the biggest storylines from this week. I'm joined this evening by Jay of Unfair Smith and Jant Sports as always. Guys, before we get this going, let the people know where they can find you. I guess I'll just go in order here. Start with Jay, go to Jant's. So let the people know where they can find you.
Hey, what's up, good everybody? Jay Smith with Unfair Sports. You can just find us by searching that name, Unfair Sports. You'll see a big picture of me typically, as well as follow us wherever podcasts are downloaded and listened to, and all over social media. Appreciate the time, Ty. Love talking college football with you.
Absolutely, my man. Jance, where can the people find you?
You can find me on YouTube, Jant Sports. We cover nothing but college sports, NFL sports, just all particular sports in general. And then Twitter. Follow me on Twitter, Jant716, and then Buffalo Fan Base, which is also on the YouTube channel. A lot of big things going on there. We moved the schedule from Tuesday. We moved that to Sunday for programs. So we'll be talking about pregame and kind of the recaps of the college football. That type of stuff like that. So catches on there Sunday at 10:30, or for your time will be 9:30 or 7:30. No matter where you are, you can catch us on those particular times. But yeah, that's all I got for that.
Man, that's every time you bring it up, I always say it. That's so cool what you're doing. That is legitimately awesome. For everybody that doesn't know, Jance is a huge Buffalo fan, and as he's continued to rise through the YouTube ranks, he's also rising through the actual sport journalism ranks. And that's really cool to see, man. So just really happy for you. Patrick, Cliff, thank you for being in here this evening. Butch, thank you for being in here. We got a lot of good stuff to talk about, and we got to start it off with some coaching hires that need to be made. Specifically, we need to stop at two programs. One of them, a lot of wild stuff is going on. The other one is more of your normal college football coaching search. And we're going to start with some normalcy, right? That's something we don't get a lot of in college football. Nebraska's coaching search. Guys, Nebraska fires Scott Frost. They're in a position where they've got to get it right. Nebraska has got to get this next hire right, because the last thing you need to do is fade into obscurity any more than you already have. I always talk about this when I talk about Nebraska. Their former national championships are far enough in the past to where they're becoming a distant memory, but recent enough to where people like myself can still remember and appreciate just how good Nebraska was not that long ago. But because of that, you don't want to go too much longer being a middle of the pack to a bottom tier team within college football. I'm really interested in knowing the hires you guys are thinking for Nebraska. I'm going to quickly give you three that I'm interested in with an honorable mention. First and foremost, I think the guy is Bill O'Brien. And I genuinely mean this. Here's why. He's got NFL coaching experience. He seems to be a guy that does better when he has to build something up, as opposed to when everything is kind of given to him whenever he's the head guy. Whenever we look on top of the NFL experience, he also has experience within the Big Ten. I think that's really compelling for Nebraska because he knows that landscape. Dominic says he has to look at Mark Stoops. Dominic, I agree. I think they should look at Mark Stoops. No doubt about it. He's a good name. My second name, I don't think he will go, but I think you have got to at least make the call, is Gary Patterson. Gary Patterson is a legendary name within college football. He is a guy that's probably really helping the Texas defense right now, even though he's not in a coaching capacity, just him being an analyst. So Gary Patterson is someone I find compelling. Here's kind of one, as Preston joins us right now. Here's a name I'm going to give to y'all that I want to hear what y'all are thinking. Jeff Lebby. Now, hear me out. I know that the conventional wisdom says you need to get a more established name in at Nebraska because of what a big overhaul you're going to have to do. I think Jeff Lebby is interesting because he provides a level of excitement to that Nebraska team, that Nebraska offense, and that Nebraska program that some of the other names don't provide. He's a younger guy. If you get in on the ground floor, you might be able to build something thereafter. David in the comments says Matt Campbell. David, I completely hear you. My biggest question with Matt Campbell is Nebraska a compelling move from Iowa State? I'm going to pass it to y'all now. Jay, I'm going to start with you. Go to Jance and then PG, talking about the names Nebraska needs to look at and why it's such a big deal.
So first, let me address kind of the two of the names that you may mention. Bill O'Brien is very intriguing to me, specifically because he has that Big Ten experience, being up there at Penn State, especially after everything that went down there. he kind of kept them stable, and he understands recruiting up there in the North with Big Ten country. So I totally see that. Even outside of the fact I know Alabama fans would love to get rid of him as the OC, I think he's a better CEO than he is coordinator. So I see him as a better head coach than he is someone that has to focus on one thing. It seems like he tries to stick his hands in places where he shouldn't be. And if you make him the CEO, he can oversee everything. And it feels like he's a little bit better with that. Now, at the same time, that Houston Texans situation kind of put a sour taste in a lot of people's mouth about him because he did not run that very well. His influence on trades and everything did not go very well. So I think he has learned his lesson from that being under Saban. That's an intriguing one. Now, the Jeff Lebby one, that one I feel like is a really hard no. And there's only one reason why I say it's no. With him being under Venables, Venables has been to 3 places his entire career: Kansas State, Oklahoma, Clemson. And he always said, I don't want to be a head coach just to say that I'm a head coach. And I feel like Lebby's probably going to adopt that mentality of, cool, it would be great to go to Nebraska, but how hard is it going to be for me to bring talent into Nebraska? Because Nebraska hasn't truly shown as an organization that they care about winning at football. Now, they say it with lip service, but they don't really show it in staff. They don't show it in their recruiting tactics. None of that. So I see Lebby stepping back and saying, if I'm going to take a head coaching job, it's going to be a job that really makes sense, and I actually have an organization that wants to win something. So from that, I love the Mike Stoops option, but he's never going to leave Kentucky until Kentucky makes him leave. He's at a job where they're telling him, we're cool with you winning 8 games. You can actually win 6 some seasons. That's cool. Just keep us relevant. We're happy. We'll give you what resources we can, but we're a basketball school. But we will give you what resources we can. Just stay relevant. Same thing with David Shaw up at Stanford. I'm surprised no one has tried to pry him away. He's a really good coach, and it's really hard to recruit at Stanford because they don't care about football. They like being relevant, but they don't care about it. So for them, going for I hope they don't go to the mentality that Michigan did, having to have a guy that's from there. They tried it with Scott Frost. It didn't work out. They brought back old coaches, and you can see that that's not something that's sustainable. They need to do a splash. And to be honest, name-wise, I don't know of anybody that they can really go after that's going to be a splash. But if they're smart, they'll go after Kansas head coach, Lance Lampoy. He's winning at a program that doesn't ever win. Or try to steal one of these coordinators in the SEC. I don't know who outside of Bill O'Brien, but try to steal a coordinator from there that maybe has some ties up there. And lastly, Nicky Joseph, just keep him. Right now, the team is trying to figure out their identity because of the Scott Frost era. I think that he can keep it going. He has ties there. If you're going to stick in-house, just let him ride it out. Let's see what he looks like for the next 2 years.
Interesting. Now, Jance, I can't wait to hear your thoughts on this. Who are you looking at for this Nebraska coaching hire?
Well, obviously the number one option is going to be Bill O'Brien for obvious reasons. But Bill O'Brien is he's familiar with SEC with not just SEC country. He's familiar with Big Ten country. He was at Penn State, and he was from his time there, he was of course putting that program in the right direction. We also saw that from a recruiting standpoint. Back then, quarterback Christian Hackenberg, who was the number one quarterback in the country that year, went to Penn State. Had a really, really solid year with Bill O'Brien, and then that's when he got his opportunity, and that's when he went to the Houston Texans the following year. So even though, again, I would love that for him to be gone personally, at the same time, that's probably the least likely to happen, only because I do think that there's going to be a question of loyalty, right? You just don't want a coach that's going to be there for about a year or two and then gets that coaching opportunity. Because again, one thing about Saban, one thing about Alabama coaches is that they're not there for the long haul, right? For the most part, Pete Golding, I'm surprised he's, and that's the reason why Pete Golding's there. That's the reason why Nick Saban went with youth instead of just getting that classic 40-year-old defensive coordinator that has a lot of experiences, because he knows that as soon as he gets an opportunity, he's going to be gone, right? Pete Golding has been offered coaching opportunities all throughout the college landscape. He's been offered NFL opportunities. He stayed at Alabama because he feels like he needs to learn. He feels like he needs to grow and develop as a coach, right? And he's still in his 30s. still in his 30s, which is extremely young for a college coach, right? Bill O'Brien is one of those guys. He gets an NFL job, he's gone. He wants an opportunity to coach at the next level, and that's to be at the NFL. So that, in my opinion, I'm not, even though I feel like for the most part it would just be a stepping. Nebraska would be more of a stepping stone if he gets offered that job. I wouldn't be surprised if he does, only because of his success of what he was able to do in the NFL and what he's and the coaching prowess that he had at Penn State. But however, I do think that there is going to be a little question of loyalty. Is if he can get Nebraska to, let's say, a 9-10 win football season like Bo Pelini used to do back in the day, he's going to get offered that job, and he's going to be up there. So I feel like there's going to be some concern with that. Some other guys, I think that Kirby Smart I think he's going to deal with the Nick Saban problem. I mean, matter of fact, we saw it with Sam Pittman, we saw it with Mel Tucker, where Todd Monken, he's there. So 3 former assistants right under Kirby Smart, now NFL head coaches. I feel like the same thing is going to happen with Kirby Smart, right? People want to take a piece of that, of really just that success, really that mold of what Georgia's been able to do over the years lately. So in my opinion, I definitely believe that for the most part, you can see coaches like Glenn Schumann, great recruiter, a person that for the most part has had some outstanding reviews from a lot of coaches over the years. I think he could potentially get that opportunity. Todd Monken, he's been brilliant. I mean, Todd Monken has been absolutely brilliant. And again, a couple years ago, I made, not just me, but a lot of people made videos, a lot of critique. The national media went after Kirby Smart. Why? Because he was when it came to the offensive side of the ball, he did not get those guys. He did not really get those guys that can make the offense better, right? The offense was just, it was too simple. I mean, it was a classic prototypical pro style look, but it was kind of stuck in the old ways. And the question was like, can this offense be innovative enough? Because otherwise they're not going to get past Alabama. They're not going to get past the elite teams that Georgia continues to kind of struggle with. And Todd Monken has done that. I mean, he's brought this offense to a different level. I've seen different schematics, different formations that we've never seen before. So I think that Todd Monken could be a guy. He's very familiar with SEC country as well. And that's why I think that's another reason why I think a lot of the coaches, not just what Nebraska are doing, I think what a lot of teams are doing, trying to get these SEC coaches, because they want the landscape, right? They want Texas, they want Georgia, they want Bama, they want Florida, right? They want these SEC-like schools because that's the place with the best talent, right? Of course, there is the Northeast, which are typically Big Ten countries. The Midwest is the East. It's some of those states that are up north for the most part. But besides really Ohio, I mean, it really is, really besides Ohio. I mean, you could say St. Louis. I mean, I'm not St. Louis. I'm sorry, Missouri, and a couple other states thrown in that pie. The talent discrepancy is it's a big gap between schools in the North and schools in the South. So I definitely believe that some of those Georgia coaches, like a Todd Monken, could get an opportunity. Will Muschamp is another name I will throw in there, and not just because of that, because he is the prototypical hard-nosed coach, right? He's a hard-nosed football coach. He doesn't play any games. The players everywhere he's been and has respected him. They've always talked good things about it. And he brings a mentality very similar to what Venables can bring at Oklahoma. He brings a mentality that Kirby Smart brings at Georgia. He's part of that Saban tree. As far as just the hard-nosed coaches and the mentality, the Saban-like mentality that he will enforce on that Nebraska program. The only problem with Muschamp is that he's, besides really the early years when he was coaching at Florida, everywhere he's kind of been has just been a struggle, and that's kind of the problem. Like, he's been bouncing. And he's done good with Auburn. And of course, he's done good with being a co-defensive coordinator with the University of Georgia. And Kirby Smart and those players have said nothing but good things. I mean, a lot of them kind of credit the success of what Georgia's are right now because of because of the addition of Muschamp being on that staff. But still, there's some concern that even though he's a defensive genius, what is he going to be like as a head coach, right? Is he going to bring Nebraska back up? Because I think that those fans are going to be a little bit patient. They're sick and tired of winning 4 to 5 games every single year. I mean, because, again, with Bo Pelini, and they were frustrated with Bo Pelini. I mean, these guys were winning 8-9 games a year, and these guys were frustrated with Bo Pelini because they're so used to winning 10, 11, 12 games, competing for national championships, conference championships every single year. They're tired of just being in the middle, where A&M is at right now. Where we talk about what A&M with those the fans having those unrealistic expectations. Well, when you've been there so long, eventually you want to try to get up. You want to try to win 10, 11 games. You want to try to get to that mark. And I feel like for Nebraska fans, they want to try to get back to that mark of winning those, of having being a successful program, of being a successful blue blood program, because that's what they are. They are a blue blood program. So, those are kind of my top candidates for now. I mean, I think some other names. I think Joe Brady, he's had a huge interest in coaching. He wants to be back there after kind of talking with him. He wants an opportunity. I don't think I think after this year, he's going to be out of Buffalo. So that's a guy that could potentially resurface. If he doesn't get any coaching hires, that could be a name that we could look out for, potentially being either as an elite offensive coordinator somewhere, or potentially having a head coaching opportunity. There's some other names in mind, but those are probably my top candidates.
Yeah, I love that list. I wish one thing I need to add into this show, I need to get one of those things where I can assign points. Right?
Like around the horn?
Yeah, like around the horn, where if I like your point, I can give you points. If I dislike it, I can just be the arbiter of your success on this show. I think that's
Hey man, I think you should advertise that out to some of these networks, man, and have another version of Around the Horn. That would be dope.
That'd be sick. Guys, before I pass it off to you, I want to give a shout out to Nino's Corner Sports. Unbelievable content creator coming in with the hook'em. Seriously, I reference one of Nino's videos from about a year ago to this day as one of what I consider a must-watch video explaining some of the problems of the Texas Longhorns. Fantastic content. You got to go check him out. Also, Brandon Hill here from the House Divided podcast. Great for y'all to be here this evening. PG, who are the names for Nebraska, my guy? Who are the names you're looking at for the Nebraska coaching search?
Yeah, so since the last time that we were on and we talked about it, I do really start to like the idea of Urban Meyer. And it's a little bit more because I think he brings stability in the terms of recruiting. Now, I don't know if Urban wants to get back into coaching just yet, or if Nebraska is the job that he would even want to get back into coaching for.
Mm-hmm.
We even talked about it the other day with Gary Patterson. I think Gary Patterson would be a great hire, but if you're Gary Patterson, you got to hire a really good offensive coordinator. So if you're Gary Patterson, do you go out there and get a Joe Brady? Or do you go out there and potentially try to talk this Nebraska collective up there into bringing in Art Briles as your offensive coordinator, giving him a second chance at the Power 5 level? Because I will tell you this, if you match up Gary Patterson and Art Briles together, that's a really good combo. However, the baggage that comes with Art Briles is going to be really hard to overcome to hire him. But if you're willing to give him that second chance, tell him, listen, your buyout is zero if you do one thing that is against whatever's set in your contract or breaks the rules, whatever it is, like you put the book on him and you keep a close eye on him. But in Nebraska,
you made a good point with that. I think the question is after everything that went down at Penn State, would Nebraska want to put themselves in that situation? But you do make a great point with him and Gary Patterson. That would be lethal.
That would be like Lincoln Riley and Brent Venables together. So,
well, if I may, because I love the Gary Patterson, what about a Hugh Freeze as an offensive coordinator? This is an individual that does have a bit of baggage as well, but not to the same degree as Art Briles. He's got the history in the SEC, and this is someone who, when he was at Ole Miss, gave Nick Saban's defense fits. What do you think about that, PG?
Yeah, I mean, that would be a good pickup, but I don't know. Like Art Briles, it's just honestly, I feel like that would be like a home run. Like Art Briles and Gary Patterson together would be a home run hire.
I just think
really
it's tough to get over what happened.
You got my attention, though.
It's hard. It's hard.
What about
it's hard
Nebraska?
to get over what happened.
But what about Nebraska hiring Hugh Freeze as a head coach? I mean, he's at Liberty. He's got a job. He's gotten a second chance, and he's so far been clean. That's another intriguing one. So, yeah. Ooh.
Yeah, I mean, and there's lots of ways you can go. I think if you're Nebraska, hire a defensive-minded head coach and then go get you an offensive coordinator. Because I feel like offensive coordinators are a lot easier to come by, and it's a lot easier to do different things in the offense that's creative than it is on the defensive side of the ball. So go get you a good defensive head coach, whoever that is, and get you a good offensive coordinator. Now, if they want to go a little bit more of the younger route, I definitely think Matt Campbell or Dave Aranda or Lance Leipold are great coaching hires. However, with Lance Leipold, he's only been at Kansas, 1 year? This is his second year or something like that. I think there's a lot of still unknown. Like, yeah, he's got Kansas going in a good direction, but
Lance is
I mean,
old.
it's
He's almost
who is
60.
who is
Lance is old. He's 58 years
is he?
old.
Is he?
Yes.
Oh, okay. I
See,
did
that's the
not
thing.
know
That's
he
the
was that
funny
old.
thing is a misconception. Everybody thinks he's like in his early 40s. No, this dude's about to be 60. So he is not a young coach.
Well, and again, I think there's still a lot of uncertainty there of what he can do, just
Mm-hmm.
because he's only been there 1 season, and Kansas is just having a good start to this season. I think I'd want to see a little bit more out of Lance Leipold before we start throwing him out for. I think I would consider Nebraska a bigger job, because if you turn Nebraska around, I think you can have any job you want in the country, because I feel like that's a hard job to turn around. But I think
Mhm.
Matt Campbell is a great hire if you want to go the younger route, because Matt Campbell knows how to build a program where you're not the biggest name in the conference, and it's not the sexiest destination to go to. I think he would be a great fit. It's just a matter of, what route do you want to go? Do you want to go the more established route, or do you want to go a younger coach route?
Yeah, really. When I look at this, as much as we can lay praise at the schematics of Art Briles, and I do think, like, schematically, the dude, I mean, it's his results speak for themselves. I just think for Nebraska, you can't put yourself in that position, right? Like, there's already so much controversy with Nebraska right now, and not anything that they've done wrong, except for football, right? Like, people are already in so much disdain at the Cornhuskers over football. But Campbell would be a great hire if they could get him. Chris, we're sitting here talking about the names to watch for Nebraska. We've had some interesting names before you came in. I talked about the obvious, Bill O'Brien, NFL experience and experience in the Big Ten. We've talked about Matt Campbell. People in the comments have suggested Dave Aranda. I gave a name like a Jeff Lebby. Young up-and-comer, offensive, exciting, has roots in Texas, in Florida, and now in Oklahoma. Who are you looking at as names? Oh, and before you go, Jantz gave some fantastic names, Muschamp and Todd Monken. I think those are both awesome names. Who are you looking at?
So you already know I've been saying it for the longest. It's got to be. I think Gary Patterson is a great hire for them. He makes all the sense for them. And then I was looking at offensive coordinators and I said, okay, everybody's saying Dave Aranda. People are saying Matt Campbell and all the rest of this. How about this right here? I think logistically speaking, I think this makes the most sense. If you hire Gary Patterson as your head coach, and then spend the money to go and get Jeff Grimes from Baylor.
Okay.
So, I mean, you're not having to go outside of college football. You're not having to basically search high and low. It's right there. I think you could pay the money to pair those two. I like Jeff Grimes as an offensive coordinator. I think that he's done well there at Baylor, and so I don't think that would be a bad marriage. But I think that for now, it's not necessarily the best that you can get, but it's a great pair to at least get you that foundation that you need to kind of go off of. But that would kind of be my suggestion for it. I don't really like the Matt Campbell hire because I think it's kind of it's not a splash hire like a lot of people think. I think it's just a safe hire. It's a hire that would get some jazz going. But I mean, let's just be real. Do you really think that he would do more than what Gary Patterson would? That's just my thoughts. But at the same time, like I said, if you ask me who it is, just to answer the question directly, I would say hire Gary Patterson and then probably pair him with Jeff Grimes.
I got a question on that with the I like the Grimes pick or whatnot. Why is no one talking about Luke Fickell? Like no one is really even considering him moving from getting him throwing the big bag at him to bring him to Nebraska. He's someone that can recruit in that area, in mainly Big Ten area. Why wouldn't Luke Fickell be a good candidate for a school that really just needs some stability? I didn't think Scott Frost was going to be stability when they got him there, and he obviously showed he wasn't. Why not Luke Fickell?
So I'm going to take this, if I may. The problem with Luke Fickell, in my opinion, actually has nothing to do with Luke Fickell, because I agree with you. He would be a great choice. I think we have to also look at this from the flip side, right? Which is exactly why, as much PG as I agree with you, Matt Campbell, I think would be a great hire. I really do. I think that would actually be, I mean, I think it would be a 1-to-1 because he already has an understanding of the landscape. Even though he's not in the Big Ten, he understands the landscape.
Yeah.
Here's the problem, though. Is it compelling if you're Fickell and if you're Campbell? I don't think it's compelling if you're Fickell anymore. Here's why. Because he's now a Power 5 head coach, right? Like that barrier is no longer there with Cincinnati moving to the Big 12. Now he's a Power 5 head coach, which is only going to grant him more legitimacy. And we also have to remember, with Oklahoma and Texas leaving the Big 12, there's going to be a power vacuum. Now, Baylor looks like they're in a position to take it, Iowa State possibly, but why not Luke Fickell and Cincinnati to take hold of the power vacuum? Now, someone just put a name in chat that I'm going to put up here. I haven't thought of. Cliff says Fickell is waiting for the Ohio State job. We got Nino saying that Lebby would be perfect. We got Cam saying Kyle Flood would be perfect as they go back and forth trying to trade coordinators. That's funny. What about Brian Hartline? I know this is a huge step up. I don't think he goes head coach, but offensive coordinator.
If you're gonna throw him out, then hell, you might throw out the offensive line coach for Alabama right now. Hell, he has head coaching experience, right?
Well, no, I mean for offensive coordinator. Like if you went out, yes, that's my fault. If you went out and get a Gary Patterson,
that's not a bad thought.
I don't. Me personally, I don't think he leaves only because he loves that Ohio. Like it just doesn't. It just for me, it's like that's his dream job is Ohio State. Now again, it could be potentially moves up, but I don't think Ryan Day won't allow that to happen. Ryan Day will do everything in his power to try to keep Brian Hartline. Brian Hartline for me doesn't and again he's even stated as far as like coaching opportunities, he doesn't really care that much about potentially rushing to be an offensive coordinator, being head coach. Like he truly, genuinely cares about that university. And I think Ryan Day will do everything in his power to prevent him from leaving. He is very similar to how Corey Raymond was for LSU for all those years. Now, of course, he went off to Florida, but he was there for a long time when a lot of teams wanted him to be a head coach, to be a coordinator. He decided to stay at LSU because of just his love for the program and just because of just because of those past coaches. They really, truly didn't want him to leave. They would do everything in their power to prevent him to leave, whether it was a raise, whatever it was. Again, we're not going to go into that much deep into the, that sort of stuff, but they would do everything in their power to prevent him from leaving that university. I think the same thing will happen with Hartline. Hartline, I think, is a big part of why Ohio State has been successful as term of recruiting from that receiving position. I don't think he leaves.
Ty, I think he's a lifer.
I got a question, Ty. I got a question. Yes, okay. If Urban Meyer was hired to be the next coach at Nebraska, is he Jimbo Fisher 2.0 at Nebraska, or does he actually get the job done?
Look, I can't. I don't know. I'm going to be very honest with you here. I don't know. Here's the reason why. Because Nebraska is such a heavy turnaround, and Urban, the way he calls his plays, like it would take a long time. And I mean, Chris, you're going to laugh at this because it's going to resonate with you in particular due to your occupation. Public perception can make or break everything, man.
Yeah.
I mean, the court of public opinion is an incredibly powerful thing that we don't really give its due diligence. And the assumption is that with Urban Meyer, things would be fixed like that. I think we all on the panel know that wouldn't be the case.
Nope.
Now, interestingly enough, the reason why I can't put him in the same conversation as Jimbo, it's because Urban's done it everywhere he's been. I mean, you look at what he did with Utah. He had Utah looking good. You look at Florida. He
Bowling
was winning. Bowling Ohio State. So, like, it's not a situation where Jimbo won a ring. Jimbo did great things at Florida State, but, like, it was relegated to Florida State. And after that, he's been a good head coach in college football. I don't think we could argue he's been bad. He's been good. He's won games. But can I give him the same level of cachet as Urban? No, I can't.
I'm just saying because you. Oh, I'm sorry. I just one last thing. You put Urban on basically. He's on an island right now. Okay, they don't really have their pipeline to Texas anymore for the recruits. They're having to recruit nationally, and it's not going as well as they would like for it to go. Right, but he jazzes up the program. He gets the boosters back into it. Recruits are going to want to stay and see and hear what he has to say. Like Malachi Coleman, OU, we feel like, hey, that's a flip weight. That's basically our guy right there. That's one of our commits, our soon-to-be commits, right? A guy like Urban comes in, and that's a serious conversation he has to have is whether do I leave home and go play for something I feel like I have a good idea of what it's gonna be like, or do I stay here and trust in the process that Urban is selling me, you know? And that's gonna be a tough conversation to turn down to have, because Urban's going to make him one of his priorities as soon as he gets as soon as he gets the job and gets into Nebraska. So I don't know. That's the only reason why I bring it up, because I think that if you take away everything he's done in the past and just say, hey, you're on an island by yourself, make it work, then could he just be Jimbo to where he brings in these a hell of a class, or he starts to bring in great classes, but you don't see the production that you want?
In that instance, yes, I took this is on me. I took the question in terms of like overall results instead of ability to recruit. And in that mindset, Chris, you're 100% right. And that is a fantastic point. Jay, I'm gonna pass it to you, and then we got to talk about a wild topic in college football.
Yeah, I definitely want to get to this next topic as quickly as possible. But I had a couple of thoughts on that. First off, the Urban Meyer piece. Everybody has read about what happened down there at Jacksonville. Hell, we heard about the kicker crying because he was kicking the kicker, pun intended, at practices. So there's a lot going on with the Urban Meyer piece that may turn off parents more so than just the players. The parents are going to look at this like, wait, this is the dude that was kicking professionals and almost got into fights? Besides that, that's the only issue I see with Urban. But recruiting, he will get players. He will. The question is will he be able to handle not winning at an institution that's been struggling with that? The second thing I want to really quickly say is when we think about these coaches, and this is why it's been really hard for me to figure out a true candidate for this job, a lot of coaches outside of your Kirby Smarts and your Nick Sabans are not seeing as much turnover as they used to with their staffers, mainly because these head coaches are trying to find a way to keep these assistants there because people are seeing that you don't get as much of a leash as you used to when it came to coaching. These coaches are getting 2 to 3 years and then they're getting fired. With that, why would you want to go leave a cush job that's not going to get you a true opportunity unless you got Jimmy Sexton right in your contract? Most of these coaches have been sticking around. I mean, that's why coaches like Brent Venables did not leave for, 15, 20 years. And a lot of coaches are following that model. Now, Nick Saban kicks people out because he's like, look, Bird, be free. Grow on your own. I need something new in here. And that's the only reason why you really see more turnover with Saban in comparison to the competition. Kirby Smart's going to start losing people because they want to elevate to something else, especially the ones that are directly underneath them. Like, I'm wondering when Pete Golding's going to go, but it seems like Nick Saban just loves that dude. So it feels like he's never going to leave. But offensive side, he wants to make those changes. So that's where my struggle has been with picking coaches for these candidate jobs, is because it's really hard to find people that just want to be a head coach. Most of them want a job that's going to actually be stable unless they can get a beautiful buyout. So
yeah. There's so many different ways this could go for Nebraska, but I think the one thing, they got to get it right. I mean, as I open this up, they're fading into obscurity, and you have blue blood status on the line. Not that that's something that fades, but you want to capitalize on that while it's fresh on memories, or as fresh as it is. Now, guys, I got to be honest here, because the way I did this next topic and the name of it, anytime I hear the word mutiny, I think about Pirates of the Caribbean, and I think that's a personal problem. But I always think of Captain Jack Sparrow getting kicked off the ship by Barbossa, and I'd like to imagine that's what happened at Arizona State, because then at least I could rationalize the story that's coming out. What in the world is happening at Arizona State? Reports are coming out that coaches on that staff were leaking information to the opponents so that they could get Herm Edwards fired. Guys, we've talked about Arizona State in the past. I've talked about, in particular, Jaden Daniels, how I don't know how to judge him as a college football player because he had a great first year, but how can I expect you to grow as a person and as an athlete when there's that much chaos around you? How in the world can I expect anybody to prosper? I got to pass it off to y'all down the line. Jay, then Jance, then PG, Chris. What is going on at Arizona State, and how do you possibly rectify this? Because this isn't exactly something that inspires confidence if you're someone looking to take this job, that this could happen.
Who wants to start?
Yeah, I'll pass it to you, Jay.
I'll go.
Okay.
So we talked about this off stream, but there's a video going on. It's actually becoming a little viral of Herm Edwards getting literally fired on the field. I mean, he did not walk off. I mean, he was literally, it was after when he shook the coach's hand. It was, I think it was like it was 5 minutes. It was 5 minutes after when he shook the other team's head coach's hand. And then I think it was two administrators. They met him on the field. Herm Edwards. They shook hands. And they pretty much told him that we're letting you go. And Herm and just the face of Herm Edwards, it was just sad. It was just sad to see. It was just sad to see. Now again, it's a quick clip, so we couldn't get the whole really the whole thing out. But it was, for anyone who's watched that video, it's like that is kind of one of the most unprofessional things you think I have ever seen. Normally, again, we've heard of coaches get fired after games. But I've never heard of a coach literally being told he was going to get let go right in the middle of the field, where he's not even going to get a chance to even talk to his players, anything like that. Like if they had a choice to get him out the stadium, they would do it. Like right off the gate, they would. I think they possibly would have let that happen. But this story is wild. It's like the more and more this case is getting out, the more and more it just makes sense. I think that for the most part, I think they made the wrong decision. Or I feel like they felt like they made the wrong decision, and I feel like they try to do everything in their power to sabotage this man, and it's sad, really, really sad to see, because they initially hired him. They hired him because they loved his NFL resume, they loved his pedigree. They knew that Herm Edwards wasn't a experienced coach at the college ranks. They knew that he wasn't a guy that wasn't a part of that level, but they hope that he can bring that program back to at least relevancy. Yeah. And, for that first year. No, go ahead.
I was just going to jump in and just say, I remember Herm Edwards saying he took this job because his friend asked him to. Because if I'm correct, the coach that was at Hawaii, the coach that is at Hawaii or was at Hawaii when you saw that mass exodus of players, thank you for giving us how you say his last name, PG? Yeah. So, with that being said, yeah, it to be honest with you, when you the way you saw the videos is different than how I saw the video. I saw the video of him leaving that field. It looked like in his face you could see that he was relieved, because you take away all of his guys, the guys that he brought in there, the guys that he had success with, and I don't know, man. It's just a bittersweet end to something that was good, but just not good enough. Herm came in and he stabilized that program. He brought structure. We talk about that a lot, Ty. How one coach, if some programs are a few players away, some programs are just a coach away from actually making a change. And that's what Arizona State was. Arizona State showed promise. They showed flashes, but under him, they were actually able to show that, hey, we can sustain winning seasons. We can go play for bowl games here. We can recruit. We can do different things here at Arizona State. People want to come here and play. So it's just crazy to hear this story. It's crazy to see that all of this went down with all the restrictions, all the rest of this stuff. It just seems like to me that maybe Herm Edwards, and I don't know, I'm just throwing it out there, maybe he ran this a little bit too loose, like some NFL locker rooms, right? To where you had just a lot of stuff going on. Because, I mean, hell, you can go back to when, Jaden Daniels, when he left. Hell, you saw the video of all the players basically raiding his locker and, saying
Roger
on the video. Yeah. So
Roger put that.
It's a lot. It's a lot
Chris,
right now.
Chris, I'm glad you kind of touched on that point, because I forgot all about that. I forgot all about that, is that he was his friend kind of asked him to take the job. I think Herm Edwards was the last resort. I think he was I think he was not the first priority. I think that he was in the second or the third or the fourth or the fifth. I think that he was a legit last resort. Arizona State could not they could not find somebody that wanted to come to that university because they've always had problems. Like Arizona State, but even before Herm was there, they've always had problems, and there's always kind of been a reputation that, you know, for the most part, you're going to be a little bit more restricted. It's not like you're not really going to have that much free reign over there, you know. So that they've kind of got a bad reputation. A lot of coaches have kind of declined, like have been offered that job, and they just straight out declined it. So I think Herm Edwards, from what we've seen before, was a last resort. I think that for the most part, I didn't think, I felt like they hired him to kind of buy some time in order for them to try to find a coach. And I think that at this point, I wouldn't be surprised at all if Arizona State maybe find somebody that wants to be there really, really soon, whether it's maybe this month, next month, maybe potentially what we see in December or January. But I wouldn't be surprised at all if we see a big name potentially go to Arizona State. And I think that if that does happen, I think a lot of people are going to be questioning, how long have you been talking to this coach? How long have you been talking to this guy? Because obviously with the whole rush thing with Herm Edwards, you clearly did not want him there. I mean, you literally couldn't even give him a day or anything. Like, you straight up went onto the field, literally looked this man in the eye and told him, we unfortunately, you're going to have to resign. Unfortunately, we're going to have
left him on the tarmac.
Yeah. So again, it's a lot of fishy stuff was going on, but in my opinion, from what I've seen, from what I've heard, I feel like Arizona State has a target in mind that they've been looking for potential for maybe months. And I feel like they're coming extremely close to getting a deal with that particular coach. And I feel like that's the reason why they wanted Herm Edwards out of there. I think they wanted him out of there as fast as possible.
Interesting. Now, PG, it's been a while since I've heard from you. Where does Arizona State go from here? And what was your reaction when you heard this? Because it's not every day we get to hear about a mutiny in a Power 5 locker room.
Yeah, so this one was really interesting, especially to see that video that Jance was talking about where he got let go on the field. I agree. I thought that was extremely unprofessional, and especially since it got out that happened. Quite frankly, I don't know where they go from here, because I don't care who you are. Outside of Art Briles, I don't know who wants this job. And I only say Art Briles because that man needs another shot. Like, he knows he needs a second chance, and he'll probably take any place he can go to, right? But if you're any other coach outside of him, why would you want to go there? Like, obviously that administration has little to no respect for their coaches, and the coaching staff around them obviously had little to no respect for their head coach. And so I wouldn't want to put myself in that position unless I absolutely needed the position, which there might be one or two guys out there that need that kind of job. So honestly, like, I think you might have to clean house out there, because it sounds like this was not a good fit from day one. And I don't know why you would hire somebody just to be a backfiller if you know they were never going to be a good fit, because Herm Edwards is the guy that is usually, like, he's loved by all of his peers. And so it just shocked me to hear all of this and to see all this going on. I mean, I don't even want to know who to get in the head coaching search, because I don't want to put people's names in that job. I just think I don't think that's a good job to be in right now, which is sad because Arizona is talent rich.
Very true.
I'll just jump on his point. I think that somebody's obviously going to want the job. I mean, there's a lot of coaches at some of these smaller institutions who would love to have that job. Hell, I mean, I think the only turn off from the job, because if you're going to interview for that job, you're thinking obviously pay raise, all of that, right? But you're thinking that you can come there and bring your program there, how you want to run your program and be successful there. I think really, really and truly the only turn off from the job would be, is this even going to be a Power 5 job after the whole realignment is done? Because Arizona State, we don't really know what's going to happen with them when all this realignment stuff is all said and done.
Yeah, very good point. Jay, I got to hear from you, and then I'm going to give y'all a name that I think is flying under the radar in coaching searches, but may just be the guy for Arizona State. Jay, the floor is yours.
So the Herm Edwards piece, it seems like he's just an awful person to work for. That's what it feels like. Because for your staff to be feeding hints and leaking stuff so you can get fired tells me all I need to know about your character. I mean, in most cases, when a team sucks and people still loves the coach, they're going to just still go to bat for him and say, he's trying really hard. It's just not working out. Nah, they wanted to sabotage this man. And anytime somebody wants to sabotage, they go as far as to sabotage and then leak it to the media that you were trying to sabotage them. Tells me everything I need to know about this person. Herm Edwards needs to go. There's no reason for him to ever come back. It is toxic there. You can tell. I mean, the video bothered the hell out of me with Jane Daniels leaving and all of them basically saying good riddance like y'all talked about. That told me enough about the control or the lack of I don't know, morals taught to these kids. I would expect them to be better than that. So it's good they got rid of them. They got to do a whole culture change. And just like Chris mentioned, the question is going to be where they're going to be once this realignment happens. The Pac-12 is dead. They're the one with the worst TV contract. So if anything, those teams will be absorbed by the Big 12. There's no chance that the Pac-12 wins anything as far as convincing people to stick around when USC and UCLA leave. So I'm curious, though. Ty, I want to know this name that you're mentioning as far as coaching goes. That's what I'm here to hear.
So whenever I look around, one of the things I look at first and foremost, I think one of the reasons on top of, just it being a favor, Herm Edwards was a possibility. We have to remember his connections that he holds to the high school All-American game, right? Like, I mean, he was around some of the best players in the nation on a year in and year out basis. And I think even if it was just a favor to a friend, Arizona State was really hoping that would be able to come in. Now, Jason in the comments says that's not fair to Herm because he's respected by a whole lot of people. Jason, I think what we're meaning is Herm needed to get out of a toxic situation, not that Herm was the toxicity, right? I think that's kind of what we're hinting at. But the name I'm going to say is someone who I think is going to be on a lot of coaching searches. It's just not going to be publicized. He's someone that has a pedigree. He's done great things since he's taken the head coaching job. And when you look at how he does it, what he brings to the table, I think morality is up front. He does it in a good way. Charles Huff. What do you think of that one, gents? Charles Huff for Arizona State. If they can clear out the top people and let Charles Huff do what he does, that's a guy that can instill some of the values of what it takes to be a winning program. I think he's going to fly under the radar. He's at Marshall right now. We've seen what they've done, right? Mm-hmm. I mean, I think Charles Huff is a name to watch for several different jobs. What are we thinking about that?
I like Charles Huff. I love what he's doing at Marshall. Pretty much, you can legit make an argument that there's at least 3 or 4 coaching candidates from the Sun Belt alone that is going to get Power 5 coaching jobs next year. But Charles Huff, I like him. It's just that for me, and I'm just thinking, I'm thinking, ask Charles Huff, would I really want to take that job? Like I'm at a respectable program. I'm getting paid a pretty nice salary. Marshall is pretty much letting me have the reins. Like I have total control pretty much of everything, of pretty much a lot of stuff, right? I'm not being held back by authority. I'm not being held back by the administration. I'm not being told what to do. Do I really want to give that up to go to a Power 5 program which has a history of not really having those nice relationships with their coaching staff, right? Do I really want to try to risk that? I think that's the question. And who knows? Again, it could potentially be a coach like Huff or somebody else that maybe Arizona State has at least into consideration. Like they kind of took a coach into consideration, or at least has been potentially in talks for a while. But again, until we see that coach hired and until we get in, or until maybe Herm Edwards, because now he's free to kind of talk about what he kind of wants to talk about, we're never going to know that entire situation of why he was fired in the way that he was. But for Huff, I just would not risk that choice. I think for him, he's at a very successful program. They're recruiting. What he's done there as far as the recruiting trail has been awesome. He is turning around that program, and they're going to be a really, really nice group of 5 teams. So do I really kind of want to risk that of going to a broken program and trying to restore that when it's not even really guaranteed. It's not even really guaranteed that much, especially when we don't even know the direction of where Arizona State's going to go because of the whole thing with the Pac-12. I don't know if I will risk that.
So here's the it's kind of like damn. Sorry. It's like opening up Pandora's box, to be honest with you. Because do you bring in a hard-nosed coach, which is honestly what you just brought in there, is what you just had with Herm Edwards? Or do you just go and try to make a flash hire? But can you actually go make a flash hire, seeming that I think a lot of people, and I don't want to be one of them, but I might as well just go ahead and throw my name in the hat. A lot of people probably consider this job to be a stepping stone job. So
Fair
I don't
point.
know if people look at that program as like, oh yeah, I'm going to be really successful. Only time I've seen Arizona State, even sniff the playoffs or sniff a championship game was on. EA Sports, right? But
Oh no.
but regardless,
the campus is beautiful, though.
So I just think that you're opening up Pandora's box because you don't really know, like, who are you going to get? You're not going to get the cream of the crop. I think you're going to have to get pretty much what's left over. I think somebody like Nebraska, because of what they were and what they still could be potentially, I think that they're going to be the quote unquote cream of the crop job to have. I think it's going to be the top job that a lot of coaches are going to want to interview for.
I got one for you. What about Alex Grinch? I know that he wants to be a head coach. He wants that opportunity. I don't think Nebraska would take a chance with him. But Arizona State, he's been in the Pac-12, before he came to Oklahoma. That's an option to get someone. It's like you said, it's a stepping stone job. So if he really wants to prove himself and people actually take him seriously, that might be the job to take, honestly. Or if he can find a way to get his hat in the Nebraska job, that might be something to consider as well. But Arizona State might be a great way for him to prove that he can handle being a head coach somewhere and then move up into a bigger program.
It's not a bad idea because I think all us OU fans on here, we definitely know the whispers in the wind have always said that, hey, Grinch, even the first year when Grinch was here, Grinch was close to taking that Washington State job simply because there was some baggage left over from the Stoops era as far as Mark Stoops that he didn't like on the defensive side of the ball. So him and Lincoln had a heart-to-heart. Now, it's just whispers in the wind. Take it or leave it. But whispers in the wind say that there was a heart-to-heart about all of that and that the free rides and this and that. And so that mass exodus that you saw and as far as the transfer portal tie, Jance, that was kind of the conversation that led to a lot of those things happening to retain him, to keep him, and then to give him some extra money, like a raise or whatnot, so he would stay. So he's flirted with the idea before. Obviously, Washington State has their coach and they have their program going right now. So why wouldn't Arizona State be an option for him?
I have a name, and again, it's a name that I think could potentially bring some noise, especially if this program goes in the right direction. That's Tosh Lupoi from Oregon. I think Tosh Lupoi is a person that could, because first of all, he's a phenomenal recruiter. Nothing can take away from how good he is. He's a phenomenal recruiter. He's from, he went to De La Salle, which is one of the best high school programs of all time. He went to Berkeley, played his football there. He has West Coast connections. He's an elite recruiter. I just feel like that could potentially be a name, right? He's been the defensive coordinator for the University of Alabama, even though me and Ty knows he wasn't the best there. People will look at the statistics and they'll kind of look at the defensive ranking. They'll say, okay, this is a guy that knows how to coach, especially with elite talent. He can recruit, he can develop the talent, especially at that outside linebacking position. That's where he makes his bread as far as developing really, really great pass rushers over the years. That's a name, in my opinion. And he's young. I think that's the most important thing. That's kind of one of the things that when Herm Edwards was hired, I was like, he's kind of old. Granted, again, this was like 20, 30 years ago. A coach being hired in their 60s would be like, that's kind of average. That's kind of typical. But, nowadays where coaches are hired at, they're hired in their 30s, they're hired in their 40s. It's a lot younger than what it's kind of used to be. Tosh Lupoi is kind of in that perfect age bracket to being a guy that if he gets Arizona State rolling, that's a guy that could be there for a while And he's always had head coaching aspirations. He's always kind of talked about how he always kind of wanted to be a college head coach somewhere. That's not any kind of news. That's been made public. So I think Arizona State, if again, depending on what goes right, Tosh Lupoi could be a person that, if you look at his resume, it stacks up with a lot of other really good, especially in that area. It stacks up with probably some of the best coaches out there.
Yeah, I love that one. Out of all the names mentioned, I'm not going to lie, that Tosh Lupoi makes a lot of sense. I think it's a really interesting hire. I love it. But speaking of the Crimson Tide, quickly, we need to talk about Alabama's struggles, right? Because right now, when you look at Alabama, Bryce is still Bryce. He's out there being a magician. They've got some talented pieces. Defensively, this is one of the best defenses in the nation. I mean, that Alabama defense, the secondary has got questions. Hopefully that's getting finalized, but that's the only area I have a question about on Alabama's defense. Defensively, as a defensive front, stingy. I know the sack numbers aren't there. That's a count of offenses scheming for Will Anderson and Dallas Turner. But offensively, Alabama has not been where they were last year. And in fact, rushing the football, they're decently ranked in NCAA. However, if I was to tell you right now that Alabama was tied for the 73rd passing attack in the nation, you would probably be pretty blown away. But that's exactly where they sit, 73rd in the nation in passing attack. Jance, I'm going to start with you because I have a feeling there's a player that once we get him healthy, it will help, and that's Tyler Harrell. The ability to stretch a defense from the outside with somebody that has college football experience, I think is going to be really powerful. Jance, what do you think we need to do to get some things rolling? Because all the ability is there. I think this offense can get going and be dangerous, but it's just not right now.
Well, first of all, someone needs to talk. Someone needs to talk with Bill O'Brien and just tell them to please, can you just be a little bit more innovative, be a little bit more creative with the offense side of the ball? Can you put these players in the right positions? Can we take more deep shots with the football? I look at Bill O'Brien from last year, man, and it's kind of just the same complaints about the offense, man. I mean, for the most part, just a kind of basic offense. None of the plays really shocked you. None of the plays say, wow, this was an incredible play. I mean, for the most part, the reason why we were so successful was because of Bryce Young's ability to scramble in and out of the pocket, to make plays, to make those plays. And then, of course, our receivers, John Mechie, what we're able to do with Jamison Williams with his ability to stretch the field, right? John Mechie, what he could do after the catch. That's why we were so successful, right? We pretty much beat beat anybody, 1v1. We dominated players with our skill position. And then our offensive line was good enough. It was good enough, in order for us to hold that protection for Bryce, create some running plays, create some running lanes where Brian Robinson would kind of make his magic. But even you can legit, even though again the numbers will tell you we had a top 10 offense, according to the Bama standard of what we had with Sarkisian, with Kiffin, a lot of those other guys, it was kind of just you felt like something was off. And when you had those games where one game you put up over 400, almost 500 yards of offense. No, you didn't. I'm sorry. You did put up 500 yards of offense against Georgia. And let's say a week prior, you put up, barely 300 yards against Auburn, and to a point where they pretty much shut you out for 3 quarters and a half. That's kind of the inconsistent play what Alabama had to deal with last year. So going into this year, the same stuff we saw from last year is going into this year. The only difference is that we don't have those 2 explosive playmakers on the outside. We don't have a player that right now could be dangerous when it comes to after the catch, those short intermediate routes. And you don't have a player that can stretch the field like Jamison Williams. And we saw that when both those players were out, all of a sudden, not a player in damn sight. Ajay Hall was, Corey Brooks was young. Ajay Hall did not learn the playbook and ran the wrong routes. It was, really the only playmaker on the team was Cameron Latu. So now we're going into this year. And now we're clearly showing that we have continuity issues. There's something lacking as far as chemistry between the quarterbacks and the receivers. Receivers can't catch. Receivers can't get open. But
they're jogging their routes too.
They're JoJo. Oh, Jesus Christ! Yes, you're right. I mean, it's just like Coach Prentice is jogging in his routes, not going for the ball. It's just ridiculous. And not to mention that when they get jammed, when they get pressed up, they just get blanketed. I mean, they cannot get open.
Releasing the wrong way based on where running
the wrong routes. It's ridiculous what's going on with this receiving core right now. And then Bryce Young, again, some of those, again, as much as we love Bryce Young, he does have some of those tendencies where it's kind of like, dude, you're not helping out your offense. Holding on to the ball for too long it's getting out of hand, dude. It's like, again, we understand you're trying to get these players to get open. You're trying to, create some time. Your eyes are always down the field. That's great compared to what we saw from Jalen Hurts, who if his first read wasn't gone, he was going to take off. It's excellent. It's great to see. But at the same time, man, you can't be holding on to the ball 7-8 times, and then there's a wide open running lane. You don't decide to take off, and then you take that sack. That's happened way too many times. That happened last week in the UM game, and that continues to be a frustration.
If I may, Jance, I got some inside information. He was told not to run.
And by Bill O'Brien?
He was instructed to not run for a large portion of the Texas game up until the very end, whenever everything started shaking after halftime, and they were like, okay, you got to run.
And
he was instructed not to.
That's another reason why I want Bill O'Brien fired. That's another reason why I want him gone for that particular reason. He holds the offense back. You have keys to a Ferrari, and you're driving it like it's a Honda. Don't
take that as gospel, but I was told that.
Oh, I can believe it.
Actually, it was Coach Bull Jones on the Coast to Coast Kickoff Network when we were talking about that. And Coach Bull Jones, that man knows college football like the back of his hand.
Oh, no, I can 100% believe it. I can 100% believe it just based off the way the offense is structured, based off of the execution. It's a mess right now. So nothing really surprises me that much. And again, you talked about the rushing offense of how, for the most part, it's fairly decent. Take away the UM Monroe game, we have not been running the ball well. You take away the UM Monroe game away, we have not been running the ball well. And even in that game, we did not run the ball well until the second half when it was garbage time. When we had Rodell Williams in, when we had Jamarian Miller in, that's when we started to run the ball a little bit more consistently. So this offense right now, it's going to struggle. Like this defense has to this team has to rely on the defense. It's just there's so many issues going on right now. Can it be fixed? I think it can be improved upon. I don't think it's going to be completely fixed. I think that this is going to be an issue that we're going to have for the entirety of the season, just like how we had last year. We just don't have those explosive players, or at least those players, or we got the talent, but maybe not as developed right now. Again, a lot of these players are extremely young, but
love the freshman wide receivers, but they're freshmen.
Exactly. And even then, it's like Trayshawn Holden he's okay, but he's not gonna wow you. Like you can just tell that Trayshawn Holden is kind of a number 2 guy, but he's not that he's not that John Mechie number 2. He's not that Henry. He's not that Devontae Smith or a
very solid possession receiver. But you gotta have a deep threat.
He's not a deep threat, and quite frankly, we don't. And quite frankly, the best deep threats, as far as we want to go with speed wise, are your freshmen. And so it's not going to be an easy season for us. That's for sure.
Before I pass it off, Blood, too soon. That hurt. Too soon, my guy. Glad you're here, but come on, think of the children, Blood. Think of the children. Too soon. Chris, Jay, from an outside perspective looking in, and Chris, usually you get on to Jance and I about being Chicken Little. Right, the sky is falling, and in fairness, I think you like poking fun at us for it, but I think you can even admit right now something's not clicking in Alabama's offense. Now, once again, it'll be fixed. But
look, Ty, look, okay, you guys sound like OU fans last year. I can't tell you. I had to apologize to my TV for all the curse words that I said at it last year. I could not stand what I was seeing on the field. It's not perfect. You guys you're still winning big, but you're winning ugly in a sense. And that's not comfortable because it's not the norm around Alabama. I know you guys want to see more dominating performances. It should come. The difference between you guys and us last year is the fact that you have a coach that says, you know what? I'm invested in this, and we're going to figure this out. But you've done it before, and you've won national championships like this. Jalen Hurts' first year was not a pretty year. It was not the prettiest of years, but you pieced it together through each game. It was pretty much a piecemeal season. and you piece
Chris,
it together, and you still won a championship.
But Chris, we made up for that very similar to how Georgia did last year. We had arguably one of the greatest defenses of all time that year. So even though the offense wasn't great, we had a tremendous defense which would pretty much shut down every opponent.
Jans, you still have that with Will Anderson, who some people would consider to be a generational talent, right?
No, we don't, because we don't have the secondary.
Listen to me.
We don't have the secondary.
We don't have the corner play.
We don't. No, I was definitely saying we don't have the secondary. DeMarco Hellams and Brian Branch have been playing excellent. And then they've been okay, they've been average, but they haven't been doing anything too spectacular.
James, here's my other point, okay? Utah State, you guys go out there 55-0, okay? You go out there and kill that team. The second game of the season, let's say it again, the second game of the season, you play a team that's been preparing for you for probably 3 months in advance. They went out there and hired a special guy, a special analyst to help dissect that offense and the team overall, right? So PK had help. Not only that, you had Sark running a script for Quinn Ewers. We saw Quinn Ewers in one quarter do great things. I won't take that away from him. Could he have sustained that level of success going forward? Would you guys have adapted? There's a lot of what ifs out there. Texas fans like to say if Quinn Ewers would have played, we win by 10. It's a lot of what ifs on that game, okay? But at the same time, you have to think about this too. Now, should Kyrie Jackson have been unworthy for however many drives he was when he was getting burnt? Hell no. Not a hard no. Hell no. But at the same time, I would say this. It's almost, if you go back and watch the game, what did you guys do that was not vanilla in that game? What did you guys go out there and do to show them that, hey, we're actually taking you guys serious? In my opinion, just my opinion alone, I know Texas fans going to eat me up about this. I don't think that you guys went out there trying to out game plan them. I think you basically said, hey, we're better than you. Watch us show you. We're going to man you up. We're not going to disguise coverages. We're not going to do any of this. Don't worry about it. We got this.
We had to go to disguising stuff at the very end of the game because where they took us.
Yes, when the game was on the line, but I think early on you guys went in there and said we're the better team on paper.
And we lost, and we lost those battles.
Yeah,
we lost those battles.
Yeah, it kind of felt like those first 3 quarters, Alabama was really just walking in there like, we have the best talent. We're going to win this game. Just we'll play. And I think the other thing to consider too, if we're talking the Texas game, another thing to consider too is that heat. It gets hot in Texas, like a different type of Texas, hot in Texas though. Especially that as you go further down, going towards Houston and Austin, it just gets a different type of hot. Like it's hot in Alabama, it's just a different type of hot down there in Texas. And I think that is in the way the field is set up, it feels like that's just added to everything. But outside of that, outside looking in, it's Bill O'Brien. Y'all need something different. That's all it is. It's Saban's gotten used to just rolling different people at the offensive coordinator position every so many years. And it's now y'all are just tired of dealing with the same person. It's time to move on. And that's really what it is. It's time to move on. Well, now, defensively.
Here's the funny part. The blueprint is there. Like the offense that Lane Kiffin, this is still the same offense. It's just that Bill O'Brien is adding on, like, very similar to what coordinators do. He's adding on to a piece of the pie. And again, he's not taking.
I feel like he's taking more away. It feels like he's closing more pages in the book than he is opening. That's what it seems like with him. He's super conservative, it feels like. Especially like you mentioned, you have a Ferrari. Why are you driving it like a Honda when you're on a racetrack? Like you're on a track where you can legally put the pedal to the metal and you're not trying it. Bryce Young should be averaging over 100 yards rushing. He knows how to slide. He knows how to evade getting hit. That additional threat will do nothing but work wonders. It'll open up the playbook, open up the offense itself. But it feels like he's not being leveraged by Bill O'Brien. I guess it feels like Bill O'Brien just don't trust him. And that goes back to his Houston days and how bad of a coach he was with the Texans. It just doesn't feel like he trusts anybody. I don't get it. He didn't even trust Deshaun Watson in a lot of situations. You're like, dude, you have Deshaun Watson. What are you doing with these play calls? It feels like the same thing with Bryce Young.
And if I may, here's where I hear you, but I'm going to disagree. And after this, I'm going to move us to the next topic. But I think he trusts Bryce Young too much. And the reason I say that is because whenever Bill O'Brien was hired as Alabama's offensive coordinator, I, like I always do, did my dive. What can I find out about who you are as a play caller? So I will go and find when they do coaching clinics, and I'll listen to their entire hour-long coaching clinic in their philosophies and how they identify plays. And I found several of Bill O'Brien's. You want to know the one constant he talked about? Tempo. Gents, hear me when I say, you want to know the one constant he talked about? Tempo. Bama snaps the ball consistently with 5 seconds or left on
4 seconds left on the clock, man. Just too much motion. We're trying to make too many adjustments, and it's just predictable. So predictable.
The reason why I say, Jay, I disagree with you. I think whenever Texas played Alabama, now, Chris, to your point, one thing, Jay and Chris, you'll know this better than anybody being Oklahoma fans. Someone pointed it out in the comments. Texas plays up to their level of competition, maybe more so than any team in college football.
All the
if
time.
they're playing a Georgia, they're going to look like a Georgia, right? They might not win, but through 4 quarters, you're going to be like, man, where is this the rest of the season? They can't do it consistently. Now I want to answer this for Roger. It's not that they're small. They might not be as large as usual, but Roger, you asked about the development at Alabama. Here's what I'm going to say. Maybe there's been a few recruiting misses, but here's one thing we have to understand. Bama is human as well, Roger. And the reason I bring that up, no other institution in the nation has ever gone back-to-back drafts putting out 2 wide receivers in the first round of the NFL draft. Bama put in 6 wide receivers in the first 2 rounds of the NFL draft in 3 years. I don't care who you are. That level of production going to the NFL, it's going to be real hard for on the 4th year you to have somebody. Now, I agree with you. Saban is not human, true, but Bama is, right? And this is one area where Jance and I will tell you, we love the freshman wide receivers at Alabama. You want to talk about a group that I think next year, the year after, they're going to be a force? Yeah, but they're young. They're young. The problem is the older guys aren't playing like they're older guys. The problem is the freshmen look like they might want it more than the older guys. But I got to move us along because I think I could sit here and rant forever.
I have one last point. Can I say one last thing about him? Okay, so I got to get this off my chest. First off, I can't trust Bill O'Brien because, one, I saw what he did to Christian Hackenberg. He left him out there to dry in that whole fiasco. 2, he traded DeAndre Hopkins. I can't trust him. You can move on.
I can't. And he traded DeAndre Hopkins for half a ham sandwich.
Yeah, and a stick of Big Red gum.
Well, let's not do Big Red like that, right? I mean, if he
would
have gotten a stick.
You trade away Miami Council Dog for barely nothing. It's just
if you don't chew Big Red, then I don't know if y'all have seen Talladega Nights. I apologize, but games of the week, right? We got to talk about our games of the week before we get out of here. I'm going to kick it off. And look, I'm not saying this is the most exciting game in college football. It's not. I'm not telling you this is the best game in college football. I don't contend that it is. The game I'm saying I think you need to watch is Arkansas, Texas A&M. Why Arkansas, Texas A&M? Because Jimbo is not out of the dark end yet, right? Like he has still got a lot of questions there. That offense for Texas A&M has been abysmal. They got a little bit more consistency with Max Johnson, but guys, as much good as Arkansas does, they can't stop the pass right now. I mean, they are a liability against the pass. That's where if A&M's going to get any level of consistency this weekend, it's got to be now against Arkansas, against an SEC opponent. You got to start off your conference play strong. The flip side of that is if you're Arkansas, you see a prime example, a team that got a lot of national headlines this offseason, and you see an opponent that's injured that you can take down and really propel your season. So Arkansas A&M is my game of the week, not because it's the best game, not because it'll be the most technically sound game, because of what I believe to be the implications around the game. Jay, I want to hear from you. What's the game of the week?
I've been in between two. The 2 teams that I've rooted for the most have 2 really big games coming up. And honestly, I'm going to go ahead and say Oklahoma and Kansas State at Oklahoma. Now, Kansas State, I saw a post that talked about OU's record versus everybody in the Big 12 in like the last 10 years. And Kansas State, 6-4. They have that's the worst record that Oklahoma has against a Big 12 opponent. They're 6-4 against K-State in the last 10 attempts. K-State gives Oklahoma the blues every year. And this year, this is probably Kleiman's best team, even with that loss to Tulane. This is probably his best team because it's the most experienced. They've got some tenure on that defensive side, and then having Deuce Vaughn back there, who's considered one of the best running backs in the country, is going to be a tough one. Now, the thing that's going to hurt them, and this is what's going to make it interesting, is to see what Oklahoma does is they can't pass the ball. They're averaging like 115 passing yards per game.
127th in the nation in the pass.
They're awful. They're awful. Adrian Martinez is worse than he was at Nebraska. He is not working in this scheme. It doesn't seem like he's figuring it out. It's literally run in some capacity. Now, if Oklahoma can find a way defensively to buckle down and be honestly like a Georgia and just destroy the run completely, showed it against Anthony Grant up there at Nebraska, who was averaging over 140 yards a game up there, shut him to only 36 yards. If that happens this game, Oklahoma should be able to blow them out the water. First conference win for Brent Venables to really start the era. They've got the road win. That was important against 90,000 fans. Now they got to get this home one, and I think that one's one of the key games.
Yeah, I can't wait for that game. I did my preview about that today. I'm really excited for that game. Chris, it's the game of the week.
Now, I just to piggyback off what Jay was saying, I'm excited about the game. I think that this is – you're going to hear me say it when we win because I believe that OU is going to be victorious. I'm going to come back and say, hey, is this proof enough? Is this enough for you guys to actually validate what this OU team is doing, right? But I got two games for you that I'm keeping an eye on, okay? First off is Oregon at Washington State.
Love that.
I think that's going to be a really good game, and that could honestly is a toss-up in my opinion because Washington State's playing really good football. Can the quarterback, because I think they got that star freshman, a true freshman quarterback, right?
If I'm not mistaken, yes.
Yeah, and he's been really good. It's just consistency. Can he keep building consistency for himself? Oregon, you know what Oregon has defensively. You know Dan Lanny's going to come out there with a really good scheme. Have they finally found their groove, or were we just basically giving kind of like fool's gold with them, right? Then the next game that I'm looking at also is I'm going to keep it in the Big 12. I'm going to go up here and to Baylor at Iowa State. I really
Before you
like
keep going,
that.
Washington State's quarterback is Cameron Ward. He came from, what was that? Was that Incarnate Word?
That's
their
right.
quarterback.
Yeah.
Incarnate Word, former Incarnate
right.
Word quarterback. So yeah,
Okay,
he's a monster.
I was wondering, was he a true freshman or was what?
He's a
year
sophomore. He's a sophomore. He was a true freshman in Incarnate Word when he was really good,
That's
and
what we're
he's a
thinking.
sophomore. Yes.
Okay. So yeah, just want to see him be more consistent with the ball, sustain some more drives. Because I mean, that game with Wisconsin that I watched, it was just going back and forth for a good the first part of the game. But I'll go to the Baylor at Iowa State as well. I mean, that's a game I'm keeping an eye on just to see, is Baylor more or less a fraud, or is Iowa State pretty good? Are they going to live up to their 3-0 record? Kind of what's going on, because that's gonna be a fight. Because Matt Campbell's going to come out there and try to be aggressive and try to throw a haymaker at them. It's going to be a real physical game. And it's the style of ball that David Randall wants to play anyways. That's a 28-24 game if I've ever seen it. So with that being said, those are my two games of the week. I think that those are going to be some fights.
Who you got coming out victorious in both of those?
I'm going to go with Washington State, and then I'm also going to go with Baylor.
Love it. Jance, what about yourself?
I got a couple games in mind. I would say number one is Tennessee, Florida. And
Yes.
then
Love that.
And then number two is Texas and Texas Tech. Now, I'll start off with Tennessee and Florida first. We're going to find out if Tennessee can potentially be a contender for the SEs. Now, again, it's been all preseason, the job that Heupel's done. Hendon Hooker's been one of the best quarterbacks, not just in the SEC, but in the country. The offense has been really, really good, especially with Cedric Tillman there. But we have seen some inconsistent play from their defense. Even though for the most part, when you look at Tennessee's schedule, it's been a pretty solid schedule. I mean, especially because again, we're so early into college football. By the way, I am not a fan of the first 4 weeks every single year because of all the FCS competition that plays with FBS. But that's for a different time, different discussion. But Tennessee,
we'll bookmark that because that's interesting. We'll talk about that on Monday.
Yeah, I am not a big fan of the first 3 to 4 weeks, but Tennessee has been. They've had a pretty solid schedule, especially being a team like Pittsburgh, who I think will be one of the best teams in the ACC. Their offense has been exactly what I thought it was going to be. Explosive. It's been consistent. They've been a well-coached football team, and it just feels like, especially talking to a lot of Tennessee fans, they feel like the program is turning in the right direction. They feel like there's a different vibe compared to what we kind of seen before. Now, we'll see what happens. I think this game is going to tell it all it needs to know because even though I think Florida, they're not going to be great. I think obviously last week and then the week before that when they played Kentucky kind of proved that Florida is just not really that great team. I think that this is still, in a way, still a kind of more – they're in that rebuilding process, obviously. But still, Florida's extremely talented. They got some key pieces. Anthony Richardson, we all know, is a quarterback that even though he's not the greatest passer in the world, just purely as a playmaker himself, he's one of the hardest quarterbacks to stop. And right, if Florida gets a running game going, and if those lanes are open for Anthony Richardson, that's a home run threat, and that's a guy that's going to be very, very hard to stop because then it opens up the passing attack. And Tennessee's defense has kind of shown that they can be a little bit susceptible, especially to the game. They don't have the best running defense in the SEC right now, that's for sure. So I think that's one of the games to kind of look out for. If Tennessee wins this game, and let's say they win this game by big, not going to sit up here and say they're going to beat Georgia, but they're going to be an immediate threat. They're by far, in my opinion, going to be the second best team in the SEC East. And even though, again, it's Georgia and everybody else, Kentucky, they're a top 10 school right now. Tennessee is in that conversation. And Georgia has to play those teams late in the season. Like Georgia has an easy ride until you get to that mid-October, early November period. That's when they'll have Tennessee, and that's when they'll play against Kentucky. So that is something to kind of look out for because we're looking for one of those teams to potentially give Georgia cause. And I don't think it's going to be Florida this year. But if Tennessee can win this game, they can win that game big. I think that's going to send a message to the entire country that this Tennessee team can be very dangerous. The second game, Texas Tech.
Love
again,
that one, by the way.
Yeah, Texas. I think for them, it's they kind of fell off a little bit. That's kind of that's pretty much expected though for the most part. I think if you kind of look at what Texas was able to do at the Alabama game. I mean, they've been hyping up that game for months. Steve Sarkisian has kind of made it known clearly that they've been preparing for Bama for a while. He's been at Alabama. He knows the program pretty much better than a lot of the other coaches there. That was a game that for the most part was a lot closer. I said that game potentially could, even though I had Alabama with the blowout, I said I would not be surprised if Texas goes out there and gives Alabama fits only because of what Steve Sarkisian, the talent that's there. So now, obviously, again, going against UTSA, they kind of fell off a little bit. They dominated them in the second half, but they kind of fell off a little bit there. So now the question is, we all know that when they play the Alabamas, the Georgias of the world, when they play the LSUs, when they play the top of when they play the top competition, they match that same energy. But when they do play against the UTSAs of the world, when they do play against the Kansases, they don't match the same energy like they match against those particular games. Now, I get it. It's hard to go against teams like Kansas and UTSA, but now you're in conference play. You're going against a Texas Tech team that is pissed off. You're going against a Texas Tech team that wants to beat Texas, right? Texas fans always, again, they will always claim that, even though they're not the Texas like they used to be, they still are Texas. That's still the team that everybody gets up for and they want to beat because of the brand name, Texas itself. I was going to say,
keep in mind, gents, that I'm not sure if the news has came out. Maybe he is back, but the starting quarterback should be back for this game, right? For Texas, Texas Tech.
Yeah, I think that's something to kind of look out for too. So I think for Texas, and again, they've shown the ability to be top 25 competition. They beat Houston, so they are definitely, when it comes to playing up to their competition, Texas Tech has kind of shown that they can kind of handle that as well. So I think that's a game that could potentially be upset alert going into tomorrow. We'll see what happens. We'll see if Texas can rebound, but I think the biggest question mark is, does that, for that Texas Alabama game, was that just kind of was that kind of just a kind of a ruse there? Was that kind of just something that, okay, you know what, they got up, they played Alabama tough, now they're going to go down and play right down to the level of the competition? That's just something we're going to find out about. Was that pretty much kind of a fake all this time? Something that we're going to find out about. So those are probably my two games that I got.
Now, who do you have coming out on top in those games?
I got Texas coming out. I got them winning by 7 points. I think that game's going to be a lot closer than what people got it expected to be. And then Tennessee and Florida, I got Tennessee winning the game. I got them winning by 10 points. Probably, if I had to give a score, 34-24, kind of an odd game, but I got Tennessee winning that.
We're close on that Tennessee. I got Tennessee by 14 because for a lot of the reasons you said, they have to focus in on one thing for Florida, which is the rush. Florida's
and they've done a good job.
Non-existent.
And they've done a good job this year so far on stopping quarterbacks from running. Now, just overall defense, they have struggled, but stopping quarterbacks from running around on them, they've done that very well this year. And I'm hoping they can pull this out because it will be nice to see the LSU game be a big one for Tennessee, and then going into the third Saturday in October. That would be a fantastic game to see played.
I think the biggest question mark is, can they stop Florida's actual ground game, right? With, that's going to be the biggest question, because Florida's they've got a couple of really good backs in there, right? You got Etienne's little brother. He's been a really, really good back for them this year. That's the question. But like you said before, they against actual, quarterbacks that can run it, they've done a really good job. And one thing that Anthony Richardson can't really do as well is, again, as far as just being a pure passer, he's not been the best. However, again, if he uses his lane, if he uses his legs, if Florida can get it going there, then it's going to open up the passing attack. It's going to open up a lot of play actions. That's where you see Florida kind of do what they do best. But that's just something that we're going to find out about tomorrow.
And one thing I forgot to give the prediction for my game of the week, which was the Arkansas Texas A&M game. Now, strangely enough, Arkansas is ranked as the 10th best team in the nation, A&M 23rd. ESPN gives A&M a 58% chance to win this game. Here's the thing. When I look at this, I'm going to pick Arkansas to win this game and pull off the upset. Here's why. Arkansas is bad at stopping the pass right now. Texas A&M's offense has not been formidable up to this point. When I look at Arkansas's offense, they've been putting up points, whether that's on the ground, whether that's in the air. They've got a lot of talent. I don't think Texas A&M has played an offense as powerful as Arkansas is to this point this year. I think they're going to really test the Aggies. I got Arkansas coming out on top of that game, pulling off the upset. Guys, it's been a ton of fun as always. We're going to have to meet up again on Monday, as we always do, recap all of these games. Everybody in the chat, thank you so much for being here. And just kind of as an off note, recently on the channel, we hit 14,000 subscribers, and I can't thank you all enough for all of the support.
Nice.
It doesn't go unnoticed. It means the world to me, and thank you guys for being a part of it. I look forward to these live streams a ton. It's almost just something that I have penciled in every week, getting to sit here and talk to y'all about college football. So thank y'all for being a part of this. Before I let y'all go, let the people know where you can be found. I'm going to start Jay, Chris, then Jance. Tell the people where they can find all y'all's great content.
Of course, you can find me at Unfair Sports. We talk OU football, college football, and honestly sports in general. Just search for me on YouTube, as well as wherever podcasts are downloaded and listened to. Ty, congratulations on 14,000. Thanks a bunch for always be willing to have me on and joining me. This is always a blast.
Thank you, man. Thank you. Chris, where can the people find you just trolling people mercilessly?
Oh, yeah.
Hey, guys, you can find me at Chris with a K. Also, you can find my guy at Seth Oliveris. Got a shout out to him. We are the guys who host the at the Horns Down podcast. You can find us on Twitter there as well. You can find us on Google, Spotify, Apple Podcasts, wherever you get podcasts. And you also can find us on YouTube as well, the Horns Down podcast.
Jance, what about yourself, man? You got a lot of stuff going on. Where can everyone find it?
Yep, you can find me at Jant Sports on YouTube for the most part. Jant716 at Jant716 on Twitter, and then Buffalo Fanbase. Follow me on Buffalo Fanbase. Got a lot of big stuff going on there with that group. BuffaloFanbase.com, Buffalo Fanbase on YouTube, or you can just again type in Jant Sports. And we normally stream 10:30 now for Sundays. We do a lot of pregame where we recap college, what's going on the previous day from college. to NFL previews and stuff like that, including fantasy talks. We're now trying to get into fantasy. This is my first season, by the way. I'm getting my ass kicked, but still, we'll be talking about that as well. So, yeah, that's what I got going on.
Awesome, man. Awesome. Thank y'all for joining me this evening. We'll see each other on Monday. Everybody in here, enjoy y'all's weekend. Enjoy all the college football action. And we got NFL now, so there's no shortage of football. We will see y'all on Monday. That's it. See ya.